Welcome. You're not here by chance. This channel is a place where history finds its voice. And you just close your eyes. Let the night wrap around you like a forgotten story. Imagine being transported to the distant past, to a world where the rivers Nile and Euphrates were not just sources of water, but arteries of life. They fed civilizations, cities emerged around them, and it was on their banks that humanity took its first steps toward immortality. On the horizon, pyramids rise, their stone edges shining in the sun as if eternity itself had touched them. And in Babylon, the splash of water is heard, flowing through masterfully built canals, creating gardens that seem to float between heaven and earth. Here, among clay tablets, marble statues, and gold, an idea was born that survived through the centuries, the seven wonders of the world. These were not just structures, but a challenge to time and nature. Each wonder is a dream come true, a proud declaration from ancient humans. Look what we can do. We were here. We will remain. Why 7? In antiquity, this number was considered perfect. 7 planets, 7 days, 7 notes. The list of wonders was formed gradually. Herodotus, the father of history, and his followers were the first to describe these outstanding structures. But the final list appeared later, thanks to the scholar Callimachus, the custodian of the Library of Alexandria. He tried to record what was considered the peak of human genius. These wonders were born in an era of great achievements when architects, rulers, and artists tried to reach eternity. Egyptian pharaohs, Babylonian kings, and Hellenic tyrants directed their wealth and power toward creating what would outlive them, but the wonders were not created for beauty alone. The pyramids, for example, were not just tombs, they were symbols of divine power, stairways to the heavens. Imagine caravans crossing scorching deserts to deliver limestone. Imagine a sea full of ships bringing timber, copper, ivory. All this for one purpose, to leave a mark in eternity. And the first wonder on our list is the Great Pyramid of Giza, the only one of all the wonders that has survived to this day. It was built around 2560 BC during the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, or Cheops. Almost 147 meters high, it was the tallest structure on the planet for millennia. Today, a little shorter, due to the loss of the upper layers of cladding, but its grandeur has not disappeared. How was it built? That remains a mystery. More than 2 million blocks were needed, weighing from 2 to 80 tons. The Egyptians had no machinery, only genius. They probably used sleds sliding on wet sand. Archaeologists find traces of canals by which the blocks were delivered directly to the construction site. There may have been ramps, straight or spiral, by which the stones were raised higher and higher. These stones were laid one by one, forming not just a building, but a cosmic symbol. The sides of the pyramid are aligned with the cardinal points with amazing accuracy. The foundation, leveled with water, deviates by only a few centimeters even today. This is hard to repeat. The pyramid is not just stone, but a formula encrypted in geometry, and inside, at the heart of the pyramid, the burial chamber. It is protected by massive stone plugs and complex passages. Khufu believed that after death, he would join the gods, and the pyramid would become his bridge to eternity. The workers who built the pyramid were not slaves, as was previously believed, but skilled craftsmen who were paid, fed, and treated. Their labor, their sweat, and their dream remained forever in these stone faces, and all this without computers, without machinery, without engines. Only the strength of hands, sharp minds, and a passion for greatness. The Pyramid of Khufu is not only an engineering wonder. It is a memory of how far a person can go, driven by faith in something greater, and although over time the wonders disappeared, turned into ruins, remained only in the lines of books, they continue to live, to inspire, to awaken the imagination, to remind us that we too have the same spark, the desire to leave a mark, to create something that will outlive centuries. When we talk about the Great Pyramid of Khufu, it's impossible to ignore the myths that surround this enigmatic structure. One of the most popular is the idea that it is not merely a tomb, but something far greater, a device with special energetic power. Some proponents of this theory believe the pyramid could have been used to generate energy. Its precise alignment with the cardinal directions and its proportions are not accidental. They believe all of this is part of a complex design. The majesty of form, perfect geometry. The golden ratio has indeed been found in its dimensions. That same mathematical harmony seen in nature, in flower petals, in seashells, in the human body, and in architecture. These coincidences give rise to hypotheses. What if the ancient Egyptians knew something that we have long forgotten? Secrets hidden beyond the bounds of time. There is another mystery, the silence within. The internal chambers of the Pyramid of Khufu are unusually austere. No paintings, no bas-reliefs, no scenes of the afterlife, no prayers to the gods, no depictions of the pharaoh himself. This contradicts almost all the traditions of ancient Egyptian burials. Why? Perhaps the paintings were simply never completed. Or maybe the pyramid had a different, unknown ritual purpose. There are even bolder theories. Some suggest the pyramid wasn't built by humans, but by representatives of an extraterrestrial civilization. There is no proof of this, but proponents point to the incredible precision of the stone joints, their mass, the complexity of transportation and assembly. To them, it seems impossible without help from the heavens. And although this is only a hypothesis, it adds a special mystical aura to the pyramid that continues to attract attention again and again. In the 19th century, British engineer Howard Vyse discovered several relieving chambers inside the pyramid. These spaces, located above the burial chamber, were likely designed to redistribute weight and prevent collapse. Yet even today, with the most advanced technologies, the pyramid continues to reveal its secrets. Scanning has uncovered new voids. One of them a massive chamber hidden above the Grand Gallery. Scientists are still debating its purpose. Could it be another relieving chamber? Or a secret room with unknown contents? Legends also surround the treasures of Pharaoh Khufu. It is believed he was buried with vast wealth, gold, precious stones, rare artifacts. Yet not a single treasure has been found. Perhaps the pyramid was looted in ancient times. Or perhaps secret chambers still lie hidden within its depths, waiting for their moment to be discovered. The pyramid's connection to astronomy also raises many questions. Some researchers believe the three main pyramids of Giza are arranged to reflect the stars of Orion's belt. These claims are supported by other findings. The ventilation shafts inside the Pyramid of Khufu are aligned precisely with certain stars, Sirius, Alnitak. This creates the impression that the entire structure was built as a temple to the starry sky, a bridge between Earth and the cosmos. Much debate surrounds Pharaoh Khufu himself. What kind of man was he? Some see him as a despot who cruelly forced thousands of laborers to build a monument to his power. Others consider him a wise and visionary ruler who inspired people to create something that would outlive centuries. The truth, perhaps, lies somewhere in between, and finally, one of the most romantic and thrilling legends. According to it, the Great Pyramid holds within its secret knowledge of ancient civilizations. Behind its stone walls are hidden texts, artifacts, maybe even answers to the questions humanity has asked for millennia. And while science continues to unravel its mysteries step by step, the Great Pyramid remains not only the greatest architectural achievement, but also a symbol of mankind's eternal desire to understand the unknown. Now, leaving behind the scorching sands of Giza, imagine yourself in the very heart of ancient Babylon. In the midst of a sweltering desert, a green oasis rises. These are the hanging gardens of Semiramis, the second of the seven wonders of the world. According to legend, it was a magical place. Cascading terraces adorned with flowers, trees, and shrubs created the illusion that all this greenery was floating in the air. The gardens were supposedly built by King Nebuchadnezzar II in the 6th century BC as a gift for his wife, who missed the green landscapes of her homeland, but were they real? That remains a mystery. There is not a single mention of the gardens in texts from Nebuchadnezzar's own reign. Yet many cuneiform tablets have survived that describe temples, palaces, and other structures in great detail, but not the gardens. The first descriptions appear only centuries later in the works of ancient authors like Strabo and Diodorus Siculus. Perhaps they were relying on oral legends or misinterpreted earlier records. There's also a practical question. How could such a complex irrigation system have been created in the hot Babylonian plain? According to legend, water was lifted to the upper terraces using a special device resembling Archimedes' screw. That would have been a truly remarkable engineering feat. But no archaeological evidence of such a mechanism has been found in Babylon. This has led to an alternative hypothesis. Perhaps the gardens weren't in Babylon at all, but in Nineveh, the capital of the Assyrian Empire. There, King Sennacherib ruled, known for his grand projects. In Nineveh, the remains of a sophisticated system of aqueducts and canals have indeed been discovered, structures that could have supplied water to hanging gardens. This version is becoming increasingly convincing, and perhaps history will one day revise the geography of its wonders. The hanging gardens are more than just architecture. They are a dream of harmony, a vision of man mastering nature, turning dry land into a blooming paradise. They embody a longing for lost beauty, an oasis amid the desert, a legend one wishes to believe in. And even if they were nothing more than a myth, what a beautiful myth it was, even in the time of Babylon. The origin of the name we now know as the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis remains no less mysterious. The figure associated with this name is more mythological than historical. For centuries, the image of Semiramis symbolized power, beauty, and wisdom. Though no definitive proof of her existence has ever been found, some researchers believe that her name may have been attached to the gardens only later to link them to a legendary queen whose fame had already crossed the boundaries of reality. So who was this enigmatic woman? Semiramis, or Shamramat, as she was known in Assyria, is indeed mentioned in historical records. She was the wife of the Assyrian king Shamshi Adad V, who ruled in the 9th century BC. After his death, Semiramis assumed the role of regent for her young son, Adad-nirari III, and temporarily led one of the most powerful empires of the time. That alone made her a remarkable figure, for in that era, women rarely played a significant role in governing states, but her story extends far beyond the dry facts. Greek and Roman authors such as Diodorus Siculus, Herodotus, and others created a nearly mythical aura around Semiramis. In their writings, she appears as a wise, powerful, and extraordinarily beautiful woman whose deeds border on legend. Her name became associated with the founding of Babylon, the construction of its walls, temples, and palaces. Many believed she inspired or perhaps even built the legendary Hanging Gardens, one of the seven wonders of the world. In these tales, Semiramis is also portrayed as a skilled military leader who expanded her empire's borders. According to one legend, she even attempted to conquer India, but facing fierce resistance, was forced to retreat. Other stories emphasize her wisdom and her ability to navigate the most difficult political challenges, preserving power in a world ruled by strong men. Even her origins are cloaked in mystery. According to one myth, Semiramis was the daughter of the goddess Dirceto. Abandoned by her mother, the infant was found by a shepherd and later noticed and married by a king. This divine origin story may have been added later to give her image even more grandeur and mystique. Still, most of her supposed achievements remain unconfirmed by historians. Scholars tend to believe that Semiramis's real role was more modest. During a turbulent period, she managed to stabilize power and strengthen her son's rule. Yet her name became a symbol of strength, beauty, and leadership, a composite figure of queens, heroines, and legends that continues to inspire to this day if we try to imagine what the Hanging Gardens might have looked like if they truly existed. A truly magical vision unfolds. Ancient writers described them as a breathtaking structure, a genuine oasis of greenery amid stone and sand. Imagine a massive, multi-tiered construction made of brick or stone. Each terrace rests on sturdy columns and arches, supporting entire gardens above. Plants and flowers were likely arranged in cascading layers, giving the impression that the gardens were suspended in midair. These terraces may have been connected by stairways or gentle walkways, allowing for leisurely strolls. At the center of it all, most likely, was an intricate water supply system. Ancient texts mention a mechanism that lifted water from the Euphrates River to the top of the structure. It may have been a screw-like device, a precursor to the Archimedean screw, or an elaborate system of water lifts. The water would then flow downward, filling cascades, streams, and fountains, moistening the plants and creating a soothing sound like nature's music. The gardens would have stood in stark contrast to the harsh desert surroundings. Exotic flora, possibly imported from Media, the homeland of Queen Amidis, may have included pomegranates, date palms, cypresses, jasmine, and roses, filling the air with a sweet fragrance. The construction likely used fired bricks, asphalt, and layers of reed soaked in resin to prevent water leakage. The gardens were probably shielded by palace walls from the wind and the blazing sun. And in the evenings, as the setting sun bathed the sky in golden hues, all that greenery and cascading water would be lit with warm light, turning the place into a true paradise for the elite. Perhaps benches, fountains, and sculptures were nestled among the trees, everything to make the space even more serene. Although we don't know exactly what the Hanging Gardens looked like, reconstructions based on ancient texts and engineering knowledge allow us, for a moment, to imagine this wonder. If they did indeed exist, they became not only a symbol of architectural genius, but also the embodiment of a dream of harmony between humanity and nature. Now, leaving behind Babylon, let us journey to ancient Hellas, the land of philosophy, art, and deep reverence for the gods. There, in the very heart of Olympia, stood the statue of Zeus, another of the seven wonders of the ancient world. It was the embodiment of power, justice, and harmony, created in honor of the supreme god of the Greek pantheon. Olympia, home to the main sanctuary of Zeus, was a place that united the Greek city-states. Here, not only were religious rituals held, but also the Olympic Games competitions in Zeus's honor that reflected ideals of strength, honor, and the harmony of body and spirit. The statue was created by the renowned sculptor Phidias around 435 BCE. It stood nearly 12 meters tall, one of the grandest sculptures of its time. Zeus was depicted seated on a majestic throne. In one hand, he held a figure of the goddess Nike, a symbol of victory. In the other, a scepter topped with an eagle, the emblem of dominion over heaven and earth. The throne itself was a masterpiece, adorned with intricate carvings, precious stones, and ivory. On its surface, Phidias portrayed scenes from Greek mythology, emphasizing the divine nature of Zeus and his triumph over the forces of chaos. To the Greeks, this statue was more than an object of worship. It symbolized an ideal, the highest expression of harmony between the human and the divine. Its image evoked awe and reverence, a reminder of the power of unity, religion, and culture. People from across Hellas came to Olympia to witness this marvel. Even centuries later, the memory of the statue of Zeus continues to inspire artists and historians. Its creation was one of the most ambitious projects of its time, a testament to the artistic and engineering genius of ancient Greece. Imagine golden light gliding across the surface of human skin. This is how, through the thinnest sheets of gold, ancient craftsmen brought divine majesty to life. To give Zeus's robe a celestial gleam, gold, the symbol of the sun and immortality, was used. Every detail of the god's attire was crafted with astonishing care. Each line on his sandals, every fold of his cloak was adorned with patterns. These ornaments not only enhanced the impression of wealth and power, but also told stories, myths of battles between gods and titans, where Zeus reigned as the victorious ruler of the cosmos. His throne was not merely a seat, it was a work of art in itself. Inlaid with precious stones, it stood tall as a symbol of authority. On its backrest and armrests, Phidias carved mythological scenes, eagles, and lightning bolts, the emblems of Zeus. These images were more than decoration. Like the statue itself, they spoke the language of legend. They affirmed Zeus's status as the supreme god, ruler of the heavens and destiny. Special attention was given to light. Sunlight streamed through the temple's windows, illuminating the figure of Zeus. It reflected off the gold and ivory, creating the impression of a living being, radiant and warm, as if the Heavenly Father himself had descended to earth. In one hand, Zeus held a scepter adorned with emeralds. In the other, the figure of Nike, light and delicate, as if sculpted from air. She was called a masterpiece within a masterpiece. Phidias's workshop in Olympia was truly ahead of its time, a place where the finest artisans worked with gold, wood, and ivory. The tools found by archaeologists speak of the incredible precision and labor required to create this wonder. But like all things in this world, the story of the statue of Zeus ended tragically. Today, its fate remains shrouded in mystery. We know that for centuries it graced the temple in Olympia, inspiring pilgrims from all over Greece. It was called the embodiment of strength and perfection, a symbol of cultural greatness. But time spares not even the gods. In 394 CE, Emperor Theodosius I banned pagan rites. The Olympic Games were abolished. The temple began to fall into ruin. Left unprotected, the statue vanished. One version holds that it was transported to Constantinople, where it adorned the imperial palace, until a great fire in 475 destroyed almost everything, perhaps including the statue, but other versions exist. Some scholars believe it remained in Olympia and perished in an earthquake, or was destroyed by Christians who sought to erase pagan symbols. Perhaps its gold and ivory were taken and repurposed. One way or another, it disappeared, leaving behind no trace. Only the ruins of Phidias's workshop in Olympia remind us of what this majestic creation once was. Today, we see only the remnants of the temple. But the memory of the statue lives on in ancient texts, in travelers' descriptions, in the imagination of artists. Its disappearance reminds us, even the greatest creations are not eternal, and all that remains is the inspiration they pass on to future generations. And now, as we leave Olympia and its grandeur behind, our journey takes us to Asia Minor, to the city of Ephesus, where stood yet another masterpiece, another wonder of the ancient world, the Temple of Artemis. This temple was dedicated to the goddess of nature, hunting, and fertility. It was not merely a place of worship, it became a center of art, engineering, and cultural life in the ancient world. Built in the 6th century BC, the Temple of Artemis was magnificent. Its dimensions were astounding, over 115 meters long, about 55 meters wide, with columns soaring 20 meters high. In total, there were 127 marble columns arranged in multiple rows. They created the impression of a marble forest, a temple that seemed to have grown from the earth itself, a gift to the goddess. Each column bore symbolic meaning. They expressed harmony between nature and humanity, a perfect balance, so revered in ancient philosophy, but the temple was significant not only for its architecture. Artemis was a protective goddess, the embodiment of fertility and the patroness of women. Ephesus held her in special reverence, considering itself her city. People believed she guarded them and bestowed prosperity. Pilgrims came here from all over Greece, bringing offerings and prayers. The temple became not only a spiritual center, but a cultural hub. Merchants, artisans, and wandering poets all sought this place. Roads converged here, ideas were exchanged. Ephesus became a nexus connecting worlds. The temple reinforced its role as one of the greatest centers of antiquity. The location of the temple was symbolic, as well it was built on marshy land. This was no accident. The swamp symbolized the connection to nature, to moisture, to life itself. Moreover, it protected the building from earthquakes, giving the structure almost mythical resilience. The Temple of Artemis became an embodiment of hope, faith, and eternal beauty. People came here not just to pray, but to touch something great, divine, and immutable. To feel that there is something in the world higher than man, higher than time, and although the temple itself was destroyed, repeatedly burned, and rebuilt, its image has endured through the centuries. In stories, in books, in imagination. Like the statue of Zeus, it reminds us the true power of art lies in its life beyond stone and gold. It lives in memory, in awe, in inspiration, in the fact that we still speak of it, in the quiet of the night. Artemis was the goddess whom people turned to for help with childbirth and for the protection of young girls. Her connection with nature was emphasized by the image of a huntress surrounded by wild animals. She was especially revered in Ephesus as the goddess of fertility and the city's protector, associating her with the abundance and prosperity of the region. These aspects of her cult were reflected in the architecture and decoration of the temple. The temple was built in the Ionic style, known for its elegance and harmonious proportions. The massive columns, about 20 meters high, not only supported the roof, but also created a sense of lightness and harmony throughout the structure. There were 127 columns in the temple, each adorned with carvings depicting mythological scenes, patterns, and symbols related to Artemis. Some columns were so exquisitely decorated that they were perceived as works of art. The main part of the temple was made of marble, which shimmered in the sunlight, giving the building a special radiance. Precious materials such as gold and ivory were used for some details, emphasizing the wealth and grandeur of Ephesus. Carved panels on the walls and porticos depicted scenes from myths connected to Artemis, hunting, and nature. These bas-reliefs not only decorated the temple, but also told stories familiar to every visitor. At the center of the temple stood a statue of Artemis, a true masterpiece made of gold and ivory. Her clothing was covered with images of animals and fertility symbols such as bees and deer, highlighting the goddess's connection to nature and her role as the protector of all life. The statue appeared solemn and majestic, inspiring awe in everyone who entered the temple. A unique feature of the temple was its roof, covered with terracotta tiles and decorated with sculptural elements, actors and figures of mythological creatures placed along the edges and the top of the roof. These sculptures added decorative richness and symbolism to the temple. Great care was taken in the temple's placement. It was built to harmoniously blend with the surrounding landscape. The temple rose on a massive marble foundation that protected it from the moisture of the marshy ground. This foundation was also decorated with carvings, symbolizing the transition. From the earth to the sacred territory dedicated to the goddess, the interior space was arranged to direct visitors' gaze toward the statue of Artemis. Light penetrated the temple through high windows, creating an effect of mysterious radiance, as if emanating from the statue itself. The temple floor was laid with mosaics made from precious stones, adding even more luxury to the interior decoration. This masterpiece of ancient architecture was destroyed multiple times, but was rebuilt each time. The first major tragedy occurred in 356 BCE, when the temple was burned down by Herostratus. The fire destroyed the roof, damaged the statue, and parts of the structure. This act provoked immense anger among the people of Ephesus and the entire Greek world. Herostratus's name was cursed, and attempts to erase him from history failed. Instead of leaving the temple in ruins, the people of Ephesus decided to restore it with even greater splendor. Thanks to generous donations from all over Greece and the support of Alexander the Great, the temple was rebuilt, becoming even more exquisite and durable. This restoration became a symbol of perseverance and faith, proving that culture and religion can overcome the hardest trials. However, in the 3rd century CE, Ephesus was attacked by the Goths, who looted the city and destroyed the temple. After that, it was never rebuilt on the same scale. During this period, Christianity's influence grew stronger, and the cult of Artemis gradually faded. The temple's remains were used in the construction of new buildings, including Christian churches. Among them, the famous Hagia Sophia in Constantinople. The temple's final destruction was caused by natural disasters, earthquakes that repeatedly shook and demolished what was left of the structure. By the 6th century CE, the place where the Temple of Artemis once stood had turned into abandoned ruins. Despite this, the memory of the temple lived on in ancient texts and legends. In the 19th century, archaeologists began excavations in Ephesus, discovering the foundations, columns, and decorations of the temple. These finds helped restore a general understanding of its grandeur and significance. Today, the site where the Temple of Artemis once stood is an archaeological zone near the city in Turkey, one of the most famous places of the ancient world. Modern visitors can see only the foundation traces, a few reconstructed columns, and fragments of marble blocks, reminding of the once majestic structure. Legends say that Artemisia grieved so deeply over the loss of her husband that she even drank his ashes to always carry a part of Mausoleum with her. Though this may be an exaggeration, it perfectly illustrates the depth of her sorrow and devotion. For the construction of the Mausoleum, Artemisia enlisted the best masters and architects of her time, including Satyrus and Pythias, as well as famous sculptors such as Scopas and Chairs. She personally supervised every stage of the work, to ensure the mausoleum would become a worthy monument to her husband. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was not just a tomb, it became a symbol of love, devotion, and ambition. Its construction laid the foundation for future architectural masterpieces and forever cemented Mausoleum's name in history. Artemisia entered history as a woman who could turn her grief into the greatest work of art. The mausoleum at Halicarnassus was not only the resting place of King Mausolus and Artemisia, but also an outstanding architectural masterpiece, unique in its kind. Its design combined elements of Greek, Carian, and Persian architecture, symbolizing the multicultural nature of Caria and its connections to various civilizations. The height of the mausoleum reached about 45 meters, making it one of the tallest buildings of its time. The massive rectangular base made of white marble was a stepped platform symbolizing strength and grandeur, creating a powerful foundation for the entire structure. Above the base rose rows of Ionic columns, 36 in total, that gave lightness and elegance to the building. Between the columns were decorative panels with bas-reliefs depicting mythological scenes and great feats, emphasizing Mausoleum's divine greatness. Particular attention was drawn to the pyramidal roof, consisting of 20 stepped layers that converged at the top, crowned by a statue, a chariot with a figure carved from marble. This statue symbolized the triumph and grandeur of Mausolus. The chariot, driven by Mausolus himself, embodied his power and immortality, as if he were setting out on an eternal journey. The sculptural decoration of the mausoleum deserves special admiration. 4 renowned sculptors, Bryaxis, Scopas, Leochares, and Timotheus, adorned each side of the building with their own works, creating scenes that reflected not only the lives of Mausolus and Artemisia, but also their cultural heritage. Among the most famous depictions were battles of the Amazons, maritime scenes, and episodes involving gods and heroes. Each side of the mausoleum had a distinct artistic style, showcasing the individuality and craftsmanship of its creators. Statues of Mausolus and Artemisia, sculpted in life-size proportions, were placed at the top of the structure, emphasizing their status as rulers worthy of reverence. The intricate details, folds of clothing, facial expressions, dynamic poses demonstrated the artist's exceptional skill and brought the figures to life. Though the mausoleum has long since been destroyed, many of its parts have survived and offer insight into the grandeur of this ancient monument. These remnants allow archaeologists and historians to reconstruct the layout of the tomb and appreciate the talents of ancient architects and sculptors. Some of the most valuable remains are fragments of sculptural compositions discovered during 19th century excavations. Today, they are housed in the British Museum in London. These include relief panels depicting Amazonian battles, sea scenes, and mythical creatures, all revealing the artistic mastery of the period, as well as its cultural context. They offer a vivid image of the power and prestige of Mausolus and his court, and reflect how themes of warfare and heroism held great importance at the time. Particularly valuable are the surviving fragments of columns and architectural elements that still bear traces of paint and carvings. These details confirm that the mausoleum combined multiple architectural styles: Greek, Carian, and Persian. For instance, the surviving Ionic capitals reveal a strong classical Greek influence, while some decorative motifs point to Persian design traditions. This fusion highlights Halicarnassus as a cultural crossroads where Eastern and Western traditions met. Part of the mausoleum's pyramidal roof has also been discovered, which researchers believe was part of the grand canopy that once rose above the colonnade. It clearly illustrates the ambition behind the design to crown the structure with a massive stepped pyramid topped by a sculptural chariot. Another important source of knowledge about the mausoleum comes from ancient literary accounts, including those of Vitruvius, Pliny the Elder, and later chroniclers and travelers. Their descriptions, combined with archaeological findings, help to recreate the mausoleum's overall appearance and reveal the role it played in the life of ancient Halicarnassus. Together, these preserved fragments and written records form a comprehensive picture of the mausoleum as a masterpiece of both art and engineering. They reveal the high level of skill achieved by ancient builders and sculptors, and illustrate the profound influence this monument had on the development of architecture throughout the Mediterranean world. The mausoleum stood not only as a tribute to King Mausolus, but also as a testament to the cultural diversity and creative genius of the ancient world. After the mausoleum at Halicarnassus, we move to the sun-drenched island of Rhodes, home to yet another wonder of the world. The Colossus of Rhodes, a monument honoring the sun god Helios, became a symbol of courage and strength, inspiring not only the island's inhabitants, but the entire ancient world. Rhodes, situated in the heart of the Aegean Sea, was renowned for its strategic position and naval power. After a prolonged siege by Demetrius, ruler of Cyprus, Rhodes successfully defended itself and emerged as a symbol of resilience and steadfastness. Demetrius, having suffered defeat, was forced to abandon his siege equipment, which became trophies for the victors. The people of Rhodes decided to commemorate their triumph and give thanks to Helios, whom they considered the city's protector. They sold the abandoned war machines, using the proceeds to fund the creation of a grand monument, the Colossus of Rhodes. This statue was meant to emphasize the greatness and independence of Rhodes and serve as a message to the world about the island's strength and unity. The sculptor chairs worked on the project for 12 years. The statue stood approximately 33 meters 108 feet tall, making it one of the tallest structures of the ancient world. The Colossus portrayed Helios in a proud stance, his face turned toward the sea, and his head adorned with a crown of sun rays symbolizing divine radiance. In one hand, Helios held a torch, guiding sailors, while his entire figure evoked awe and conveyed a sense of protection over the island. A popular myth claims the statue stood at the entrance to the harbor, with ships sailing between its legs. But this is most likely a romanticized legend. In reality, the statue stood on land near the harbor, positioned to be visible from afar and serve as a symbol of protection and prosperity. The construction of the Colossus became a symbol of victory not only because of its scale, but due to the deep symbolism invested in it by the people of Rhodes. The statue was more than a monument to Helios. It was an expression of unity, pride, and the power of a city that had withstood a formidable enemy. Its construction was a collective triumph. All levels of society contributed, from selling the war spoils to participating in the building process. Each contribution strengthened the communal spirit and solidarity among the citizens. The idea of creating the Colossus as an offering to Helios reflected the people's faith in divine justice. They believed their victory was the will of the gods, and the statue was a visible reminder that even the mightiest enemies could be overcome with determination and faith. The location of the Colossus was carefully chosen. It was erected to face incoming ships, making an impression on guests and traders. This was not only practical, but also served as a statement of Rhodes' status as a center of power and commerce in the Mediterranean. The statue literally looked out over the sea, greeting travelers and declaring that Rhodes was a city that could not be conquered. Despite its grandeur, the fate of the Colossus was tragic. Around 226 BCE, a powerful earthquake struck the island, and the 33-meter-tall statue collapsed under the force of the tremors, scattering massive fragments across the area. Nevertheless, even in its ruined state, the Colossus continued to awe visitors. Pliny the Elder wrote that many came to Rhodes solely to see the remains of this giant statue. After the earthquake, the citizens consulted the oracle at Delphi to ask what should be done with the ruins. The oracle advised them to leave the fragments as they were, interpreting the destruction as a sign of the god's will. The Rhodians obeyed the prophecy, and the remnants of the Colossus remained on the ground for several centuries. In the 6th century CE, when Arab forces conquered Rhodes, the remaining fragments of the statue were dismantled and sold as scrap metal. Legend has it that it took 900 camels to transport the pieces. The legacy of the Colossus lives on as a symbol of bravery and unity, inspiring not only ancient writers but generations to come. The Colossus of Rhodes became the archetype for monumental statues and served as inspiration for many later works, including the famous Statue of Liberty in New York City. After the Colossus of Rhodes, we travel to Egypt, to the island of Pharaohs, where the Lighthouse of Alexandria once stood, another of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. This structure was not only a marvel of engineering, but also had immense practical value, serving as one of the most important navigational aids of the ancient world. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was built around the 3rd century BC, during the reign of Ptolemy to Philadelphus, in one of the largest trade and cultural centers of the Mediterranean. The city, founded by Alexander the Great, quickly grew into a major hub of international commerce. Its harbor, protected by the island of Pharos, welcomed ships from across the known world, but submerged rocks and shallow waters made entering it dangerous. The need for a lighthouse arose from the desire to ensure the safety of sailors and to reinforce Alexandria's status as a premier maritime port. The lighthouse became a symbol of technological advancement and the ambitions of the Hellenistic era. Its height surpassed that of all other structures of its time, and according to some accounts, it could be seen from up to 50 kilometers away. By day, it reflected sunlight using a metallic mirror. At night, a large fire burned at its summit, maintained by dedicated personnel to guide sailors. It was a beacon of hope that helped ships avoid peril. Many ancient writers praised the lighthouse's design, describing how it safely guided vessels into the harbor, even in stormy weather. But its importance extended beyond navigation. It bolstered Alexandria's role as a center of commerce, culture, and science. Its light seemed to proclaim to every approaching traveler, "You have arrived at the center of the world." The Lighthouse of Alexandria also symbolized the power and wealth of the Ptolemaic rulers, showcasing their ability to merge engineering prowess with their ambitions of leading the Hellenistic world. Alexandria attracted not only merchants, but also scholars, travelers, and artists who marveled at its grandeur. This lighthouse was not merely an engineering feat of its time, but a true masterpiece of architecture and technology, one that influenced construction for centuries to come. Its design incorporated innovative solutions that allowed it to fulfill its vital function while withstanding the tests of time and nature. The Lighthouse of Alexandria was built from large blocks of light-colored limestone, which made it visible even from great distances. These blocks were held together using lead clamps, giving the structure strength and resistance to earthquakes, which were common in the region. This was an advanced solution for its time, as it allowed the blocks to shift slightly during tremors, preventing the building from collapsing. The lighthouse's structure was divided into 3 tiers, each serving its own purpose. The lower part was a massive square base that provided stability to the entire construction. The middle section was an octagonal tower, designed to reduce wind resistance and evenly distribute the load. The top level was a cylindrical tower, the lightest part which ended in a platform where the fire burned. This 3-level design not only gave the lighthouse an elegant visual appearance, but also ensured its stability for centuries. One of its most remarkable technological features was the mirror used to reflect sunlight. The polished metal surface enabled the light to be directed over long distances, especially effective during the daytime. At night, a large fire was lit at the top of the lighthouse, and its light was also enhanced with the mirror. This was one of the earliest known uses of reflective technology in architecture. The longevity of the lighthouse can be attributed not only to the quality of its materials and the thoughtful engineering, but also to its symbolic significance for the Ptolemies. The lighthouse was more than a functional structure. It was a symbol of their power and mastery, which is why it was constructed with the best technologies and resources of the era. Nevertheless, even these measures couldn't fully protect the lighthouse from the destructive forces of nature. The Lighthouse of Alexandria stood for several centuries, serving as both a navigational beacon and a cultural symbol. However, a series of strong earthquakes, especially those in 956, 1303, and 1323, caused irreparable damage. Eventually, only ruins remained, and its stones were reused in the construction of the fortress that still stands on the site today, the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which once rose above the island of Pharos, had a tremendous impact on the development of lighthouses as navigational structures. Its innovative design and grand scale set the standard for lighthouse construction in later eras. It was not only a wonder of the ancient world, but also a prototype for future engineering achievements. Above all, the Lighthouse of Alexandria established the concept of the lighthouse as a multifunctional structure. It was not just a guide for sailors, but also a symbol of power, strength, and cultural greatness. This idea of combining practical utility with aesthetic and symbolic meaning was echoed in lighthouses built elsewhere. Even centuries later, lighthouses continued not only to light the way, but also to stand as architectural landmarks that reflected the prestige of port cities. The lighthouse's influence on technology was also profound. Its multi-tiered structure, including the massive foundation, provided resistance to wind and earthquakes and made it easier to maintain the fire. This became a prototype for many lighthouses later built along the coasts of Europe and Asia. The technology of using mirrors to reflect light, while less effective than modern methods, laid the groundwork for the principle of directed light in navigation. Today's lighthouses use Fresnel lenses and complex optical systems, but their core idea can be traced back to the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which first demonstrated how reflected light could greatly improve visibility for sailors. The symbolic role of a lighthouse as a light in the darkness also stems from the Pharaoh's lighthouse. For sailors, it became not just a beacon of safety, but a symbol of hope, of overcoming danger, and of returning home. Many modern lighthouses were inspired by the legend of the Lighthouse of Alexandria, including famous structures like the Tower of Hercules in Spain and the Statue of Liberty in New York, which is also a lighthouse and simultaneously a symbol of greatness and freedom. Now, a few words about the fate of the 7 wonders of the world and why most of them have not survived. The answer is both simple and complex. Many factors played a role, from natural disasters to human negligence. Imagine these magnificent structures, built with technologies that aimed to protect them from destruction. Architects and builders reached incredible heights of craftsmanship using stone, wood, and marble. But even the strongest materials are vulnerable to time. Natural disasters played a major role. For example, the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus stood for several centuries but was eventually destroyed by earthquakes. The Colossus of Rhodes also collapsed under the weight of its own ruin. Earthquakes spare no structure, no matter how strong. Human activity was also a cause of destruction. The Lighthouse of Alexandria, which once proudly towered over the Mediterranean, was partially destroyed by earthquakes, but it was ultimately dismantled by people who reused its stones for construction. Other wonders suffered similar fates. Some were lost to war, some partially destroyed and repurposed, others simply forgotten. Perhaps the most tragic loss was the Library of Alexandria. Although it is not officially one of the 7 wonders, it symbolizes the same deep sense of loss as the Colossus of Rhodes or the Temple of Artemis at Ephesus, which was burned down by someone hoping to be remembered in history. The wonders that were once built have, over time, disappeared or lost their influence. The Egyptian pyramids survived because they were too massive and constructed using technologies ahead of their time. The other wonders, more refined and delicate, were vulnerable. They weren't built for eternity, but to impress their contemporaries. Nevertheless, they left a mark on history. We still remember them as symbols of human ambition, brilliance, and a striving for beauty. The fate of the wonders reminds us that even the greatest achievements are temporary, but the memory of them can live on forever if preserved and passed on. The restoration and modern reinterpretations of the 7 wonders of the world are attempts to keep the memory of ancient masterpieces alive and to draw inspiration from them in creating something new. Although the originals have been lost, with the exception of the pyramids of Giza, their grandeur continues to inspire architects, artists, and engineers around the globe. Today, humanity is trying to revive their memory. Some wonders have even been the subject of literal restoration efforts. For example, in Turkey, archaeologists and architects are working at the site of the Temple of Artemis in Ephesus. Though the temple now exists only as scattered columns and ruins, its reconstruction is not only a technical challenge, but also a cultural project aimed at restoring former glory. A full recreation of the temple is unlikely, but modern technologies allow for detailed 3D models that capture its elegance. Another example is the attempt to revive ancient wonders through new projects. There have been several proposals to build giant modern statues symbolizing engineering skill and improved seismic resilience. The inspiring Lighthouse of Alexandria also finds its modern analogs. Some historians and architects dream of rebuilding it to full scale so it can once again become a symbol of maritime navigation and human ingenuity. In Egypt, there has even been discussion of constructing a modern lighthouse based on the original design, but using cutting-edge technology beyond direct reconstruction. We also see the creation of new wonders that pay tribute to the ancient ones. For instance, Dubai, with its architectural ambitions, echoes ancient civilizations striving to create the impossible. The Burj Khalifa, a majestic tower, stands tall like a modern colossus, showcasing the power of today's technology. The harmony of nature and art is reflected in Singapore's vertical gardens or the famous rooftop garden in Milan. These modern gardens show how ancient dreams of paradise on earth are still alive in our time. The fate of the seven wonders reminds us that human inspiration is eternal. We cannot bring the past back, but every new project is not only a tribute to memory, it's a reminder that the human dream, like history itself, continues.